Yo, how's it going everybody? So in this particular video, I'm going to answer a question from a Patreon supporter of mine. Thank you very much, brother man. His name is Mike, and Mike asked, if you had to red pill somebody on the SSP, on the Secret Space Program, in 5 minutes, what would be your strongest pitch? Now, this is a very good idea for a question for me to answer, because when we're in normal everyday conversation and the opportunity arises to pass along some knowledge to somebody to try to help wake them up, you're not going to have much time to do that. You're not going to be able to bust out your laptop and scroll through your bookmarks or log into the YouTube app, type in "Destroying the Illusion," you know what I'm saying? So it's going to have to be something that comes off the top of the dome in the heat of the moment in conversation, and very simple for you to be able to make a compelling argument for yourself. So I'm going to just offer you some very basic pieces of data that you can remember and that looks very good to them. And I might even make this into a running series where I do this on various topics. But in this particular one, we want to prove that secret space programs exist, that there are projects out there that very much exist that we haven't been told about, and that have a lot of money and very advanced technologies that have funneled into them. So, and mind you, real quick to note before I get into this particular information, and this goes for any concept out there, SSP, health stuff, political corruption and whatnot, you also have to realize where they're coming from. So, say you offer them some information that's too deep too quick, they're just going to get cognitive dissonance and, run away and call you crazy. So you want to offer information that still has some mainstream relevance. Say they type it in, they'll get Wikipedia information, maybe some sources from mainstream media that they can still vibe with, but there might be articles from more alternative sources that pop up to the top, or some information there that will still expand their thinking, that will still push the envelope past the mind control programming that they're ingrained with. So you just want to be really easy with how you go about it, and then as they get more and more open-minded, you can start offering them some deeper and deeper info and keywords and whatnot. But in this particular issue, to prove secret space programs, we're going to go through 3 things right here. Number 2 and 3 are pretty linked, so you can kind of talk about these things at the same time to help prop both of them up. But number 1 here is Gary McKinnon. So if you're not familiar with who Gary McKinnon is, he was a hacker based out of the UK in the early 2000s. And he became aware of the work of the Disclosure Project, Stephen Greer's initiative, where whistleblowers and insiders were offering their testimony about secret government projects and UFO cover-ups and the technologies associated with that. So when he became familiar with the Disclosure Project, he wanted to find legit evidence of government cover-up and this technology. So he actually hacked into US military and NASA NASA computers in 2000 and 2001, and he found legit evidence of secret space programs. He found evidence of a naval secret space program called Solar Warden. And according to his testimony, he saw documents that said fleet-to-fleet transfers with names of officers. They would even say, colonel, lieutenant colonel, their rank. And then he had another document that discussed, or that was the one that said non-terrestrial officers, excuse me. And then there was one that said fleet-to-fleet transfers with the names of ships, USS this, USS this. And he had never heard of these names before, so he cross-referenced those names with the publicly available names of the water-based Navy ships, and there was no match between them that he could see. So his testimony is legit. It's there. You type it in, Wikipedia articles will come up. I think there was even a Huffington Post article written about him. I'll link that down below, something you could, bookmark real quick, maybe to send to people. So it's all there. And his story even gained worldwide recognition, even. His issue, once he was arrested, found out what he did and he was arrested, his story went into the UK Parliament, even reached those levels. I believe it was a Pink Floyd member that wrote a song about him for activism to support his issue. So they'll also see that, and they'll see like, wow, there was a serious attempt to suppress this guy, and people became known about it. It was said that his hack was the biggest hack of all time, and why would there be suppression and so much backing of him if it wasn't legit? So very good, just simple thing you can pass along in a quick 5 minutes to get people to understand, like, wow, secret space programs exist. And it's really cool that he even found evidence of this particular one, Solar Warden, the US naval program, because that could lead into some further rabbit holes for them. And now let's get into number 2 and 3. And like I said, these ones are pretty linked here. Number 2 is missing money. And number 3 is the classified technology in these projects. And when you really lay out how much money and the timeline that it's been swiped from us through the Pentagon, and then the classified technology, and you know, these groups, these factions, these elite, whatever you want to call them, they got this technology and then the money started getting siphoned out and whatnot. When you lay these two things out for them, build the timeline, it really kind of shows them like, wow, there's a lot of money that have gone into these things, so what do they really have, you know? And when talking about the missing money, there's 3 particular dots that you can show them that will help them see the timeline and how much money has been taken through the Department of Defense. So number 1, talk about Donald Rumsfeld in 2001. They'll be able to type this into YouTube and see his testimony and see even like CBS reports, I think, that were talking about it in the early 2000s. But Donald Rumsfeld, the day before 9/11, testified in front of Congress to $2.3 trillion that were found missing from the Pentagon in a matter of a few years near the end of the 90s and early 2000s. 2.3 trillion. And that was reported in the mainstream. But of course, the next day, 9/11 happened. A lot of people forgot about that. And here we are 17 years later. So this will also open up the idea for them, you know, 9/11, wow, maybe there was some cover-ups to distract us and whatnot. So again, it'll open up a couple more avenues for them to research. But yeah, they'll see the 2.3 trillion and say, oh, that's a lot of money, right? And then you can tell them about, well, look into now. So in 2015, what, 14 years after that, 2015, a Department of Defense Inspector General report came out detailing that the account of, I think it was misadjustments or something that they particularly labeled it as, is now up to 6.5 trillion out of the Department of Defense. So wow, just, you know, decade and a half, that nearly tripled. 6.5 trillion. What could they build with 6.5 trillion? Various unacknowledged projects in the corporations and, you know, military intelligence circles. Wow, 6.5 trillion. And then you can really hound that home if they're kind of understanding that a lot of money's missing and believing you. You can mention that that number is very well, could be up to 20 trillion plus now. And you can reference the recent looking into this by, I believe it was a Michigan State University professor, and he had a ex-government official and a team of students around him, and they saw this, and they saw this information, and they studied it, and they found, wow, our count is actually up to 20 trillion. So again, I'll link all these down below so you can maybe even send that to people and bookmark and whatnot. So that lays out the timeline of, wow, in just a few decades, there's a lot of money that was taken. And also, to note really quick, one pop culture reference you can throw in there to help them paint the picture clear a little more so is Independence Day. So in the 1995, the first Independence Day, there was a scene when the president, you know, aliens started attacking and whatnot, and the president was taken to Area 51 and he was brought down into the underground base there. So much disclosure in that movie, now just think about it. He was taken to the underground base. He was like, wow, he had never been read in on it before. He never knew that that existed. He was like, oh my gosh, how do we fund all this? And a guy in the movie, can't remember his name, but he was just making this joking reference. He's right. He's like, you don't think they actually pay $20,000 for a toilet seat, do ya? And if you even follow the Q posts, one of the Q posts from a while ago said $15,000 for a hammer. Who audits? Who audits the Pentagon? Well, that's another thing you can mention. The Pentagon's never been audited. There's one going on now. But that's something else we can talk about. But point being here, that's how they siphon this money. When they make their proposals, they say they need a lot for these very cheap items. And there's a lot of money there that's just sitting that then gets funneled somewhere. You have an idea where it gets funneled. But that's just something you can mention really quick to help them see it and laugh and whatnot. Sometimes laughing the truth off is the best way to hound it home into somebody. But missing money. And now let's go into classified technology. So classified technology, this begins in the 1950s is where you can start this. Actually, before we get into the classified technology, mention this right here, the Invention Secrecy Act. So this was started in the 1950s, 1951, but this details how that the government really does keep technology secret and classify patents. So the Invention Secrecy Act was made in 1951, and basically any branch of government, State Department, Navy, intelligence agency, whatnot, they can classify a patent top secret, probably higher than top secret, if it if it would be a matter of national security, is how it's technically termed. Of course, national security, very broad blanket term right there. But if they find that it's a matter of national security, they can classify any patent secret. So, of course, that's very vague. They can do that with many patents, whatever they want. And since 1951, there is now 6,000, this is documented, 6,000 patents, could even be a couple more thousand than that, but somewhere in that range of classified patents. And it's been said that most of these have to do with energy creation technology, the zero-point energy technology, possibly even anti-gravity. We'll talk about that. Some of the researchers and the ones that had their stuff classified in a sec here. But yeah, a lot of patents classified top secret and deeper by the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951. Boom, lay that out for them. It's going to open some windows right there. And now let's talk about some suppressed scientists. So you can stick to the same time frame and say, hey, Invention Secrecy Act 1951, and in the 1950s, there was a dude named T. Townsend Brown. And of course, Tesla. Can't forget Tesla. You can always throw him in there. But T. Townsend Brown, in particular to secret space program research, in the early 1900s, and especially in the 1940s and 50s, he was doing research into literal anti-gravity, more specifically termed electrogravitics. So you can throw that term on to somebody you're trying to wake up so you can sound more legit. It's not anti-gravity, it's electrogravitics. They're actually different. So he was doing research into electrogravitics and how when he took metal flying saucers or anything that had a crystalline structure in the matter that composed it, and he put a high voltage electrostatic shock into a metal saucer shape, it would float. And he could create levitation and propulsion with just electricity in a metal disc. And his research was then classified by the Navy. And, you know, that's interesting. A lot of people don't think Navy when they think of space. They think of Air Force and whatnot. But actually, Navy is much more apt to go into space because you have a submarine that's already in that shape that can accompany an electrogravitic drive and really easy and whatnot. And the people that are trained in the Navy are trained particularly for long missions in a contained area, in a contained ship. So it's just, you know, Navy usually has the upper hand actually over the Air Force when it comes to space projects. But in regards to the classified technology, yeah, T. Townsend Brown doing that research into flying discs, floating discs. He had some patents awarded to his name. You can also say, and they can look up, and then his research was classified top secret. Of course, Tesla's papers were taken from his apartment when he died in 1943 in New York, and then a lot of that had to do with free energy, and towards the end of his life, Tesla was actually looking into anti-gravity, electrogravitic research that he then passed along to a protege of his, Otis Carr. And then also, of course, good old William Tompkins. So William Tompkins has very good credentials behind his name. He was a insider. He didn't like the term whistleblower, but he was a, we'll say, disseminator of inside research. He worked for naval intelligence during World War II. Then after that, he went to design spacecraft for the Navy in highly classified aerospace corporate think tanks. So there's a lot of well-documented, very prestigious credentials behind his name. Granted, some of his testimony might delve into a bit too deep, too quick for some people. He gets really into talking about the ET races and the war going on between positive and negative factions and whatnot. So it might be a little too much, but if people are open in the quick few minutes that you have to talk to them to a lot of this research, just say, look into William Tompkins. He just came out a few years ago. He's got a book. He's got a lot of interviews. I did an interview with him, and boom, right there, they can go watch some good information that's going to open their eyes, of course, to a lot of stuff. So there you go, guys. That was there's a lot of research that you can go and understand really quick yourself. Keep up here so you can drop into conversations really quick. And Gary McKinnon, Missing Money, Classified Technology. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. And then also want to drop right here, go check out my Secret Space Program webcasts. I do them once a month. There's a few I've already done that you can go back and watch. And then there's more coming up every month. I'm doing one in a week here with Emery Smith, and you can purchase it and watch live. And there's a lot of information painted in those that can really help you hone in your understanding of all of this, and then your skills in being the person to teach it to others. I lay it out very simply, as I try to do with all of my research. So there you go, quick plug for that. Get yourself educated, get yourself understanding, and let's help wake them up, guys. 5 minutes in how to red pill somebody on the SSP. Boom.